Hey guys, Coach Bricks here. I hope you are fantastic. This one's on proper movement. Okay, now most people talk about, hey, yeah, you need to move properly to make sure that you don't have injuries and all this kind of stuff. But most people don't know how to move properly. Most people don't even talk about it. Because I listen to people in the strength and conditioning field, and most of them are like, okay, let's squat, turn your toes out. Okay, or deadlift, turn your toes out. All right, when you side shuffle, open your foot up, the side shuffle. And I always look puzzled at this because I'm like, is that really how the body moves? And if one time, definitely when I was younger, I followed all these guys, and I was like, these guys got to know what they're talking about because these guys, have been in this field for years. But then I started looking at these guys having, back pain and hip pain and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, interesting. So then I started getting into how the body moves, okay? And I started looking at it in a different light. Biblically, ancestrally, how did we have to live? And we live totally different than we do today, okay? So back in the day, you didn't sit nearly as much as we do. We stood and we ran and we moved constantly, okay? Because that's just what we had to do. We had to walk tons of places. We didn't get in a car and go, okay? So we had to do these things. Plus we had to hunt and gather for our food. We had to plant our food. We had to move this stuff to build this, whatever it was, okay? So we were definitely much more active. Well, we're trying to put that same thing in the people of today. And we just assume that's how it goes. Well, they move correctly. Well, no, they don't, because we're training them not to move correctly. Plus also, a lot of the muscles that should fire and work don't work properly because they're not being utilized, because we sit way too much. We're too sedentary, we're lazy, we're all these kind of things that are now destroying the human body. So you got to get them to fire properly, okay? So when I tell my athletes, hey, you got to stand with your toes pointed straight, there's people in my industry that will say that's not important. But it is important. That's how the body moves. I'm sorry, you can argue with me all day long. And there's some people who get away with it for a while. And then eventually their body breaks. And then they can't understand why their body broke. My hip hurt. And they'll blame it on the sport. Well, just too much wear and tear. The wear and tear doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, people lived to 900 years old in the Bible. Heaven forbid. You know what I mean? They probably were doing stuff crazy. I mean, look at Noah. He built this ark. It took him 120 years. And I don't know how old it was. 400, 500 years old. So this whole thing that, well, that number's different. I don't agree with that either, but we have to get back to understanding how the body moves and how it functions and why today's person, not just athlete, but person, is breaking down at such a young age. We have more injuries now in sports, okay, and in general than ever before, but yet we have all these strength and conditioning coaches that are teaching people, sports performance coaches and people in this field, and yet we're having so many people that are getting banged up. Now, granted, the strength and conditioning coach is only there with them maybe 4, 5, 6 hours out of a whole week. People have to do stuff on their own. And that's what I always stress with my athletes, is you got to do this stuff on your own. I can't be there all the time. The same thing as eating. I can't eat for you. You have to eat properly to make sure you get the most out of it. So proper movement is key. Yes, moving is great, but properly moving is very, very on point, because we're not training that stuff to be right. If you have a coach teaching you to turn your feet out when you catch a power clean or squat or deadlift, ask them why. What is the reason behind that? Is that how I walk? Do I walk with my feet out like this or run? Now, I know there's some people who run and they get away with it for a while, like I said, and then eventually their body falls apart. But isn't this how we're supposed to? If you watch a lion run or a tiger run or even an ape, their feet come out here, right? They come here, the outside part of the foot. Here's my thumb. They come out and they grip the ground, and that's how they do it. But they don't go like this. And if they do, there's something wrong with them. They're usually hurt, and they're usually going to be caught for dinner because there's a problem. Same thing with humans. You're not in the right state. Even though you might get away with it for a while, eventually your body's going to break down. That's what I want to avoid. I don't want you to be 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. My hips hurt, my back hurts, this hurts, that hurts. Why? Well, look how you stand. And I tell this to people, trust me, I've told it to many, many of my family members. Some of them will listen, some of them won't. And the ones who listen, guess what? They don't have any issues. The other ones, back pain, neck pain, all this kind of stuff. And they just blame it on the job. They blame it on this. No, it's too much sitting, and it's also improper movement. So I get into the whole thing on this. And you guys can ask me questions on this. And like I said, I understand there's a lot of people who don't really stress this enough and don't think it's that important. They laugh at it. They joke about it. I mean, there's strength and conditioning people that doesn't think that's important. But if they really dove deep into understanding the human body and going back to our ancestors and going back even further into the biblical times, they probably would start thinking differently about things. So reach out with questions, guys. I hope you have a blessed day, and God bless you.